Phil,
Fine.
how's everything going in life and your day?
Hectic and then slow.
Describe that.
Not much happening. Well, I'm making work. There's always a search for money, desperate search for that.
The creative hunt.
Yeah. And so I'm satisfied with the work part of it. The business part of it is always frustrating. I never really understood that, you know. I was never really a good business person. So,
but that's such an
I
interest.
accept that.
Yeah,
you
but
know.
that's such an interesting point because I think so many creatives, we know that we live in a country where we have the opportunity to explore a entrepreneurial path. But I think that often for several Black, brown, ethnic people, we're not raised with the secondhand information like any other young privileged person is that grows up in a household where that type of information that is just invaluable to people, especially in your career, is not embedded into you at an early age. We're fed so much about you have to get a job, you have to go to school, you have to work. Never, this is how you make money. This is how you grow your money.
Yeah. And so I have people, probably my family now that I'm nearly 60, I think they begin to believe that I'm actually serious about this, that it's not a hobby after a half a
That's
century.
Amazing. That's amazing that it takes that long for people to catch up because Sabrina and I just made that point and when we spoke that for many years, her biggest supporters were overseas, not here at home.
Yeah.
Have you experienced that as well? Like most of your support comes from outside your circle?
No, I mean, because I don't know anybody overseas. I don't know a lot of people elsewhere. I mean, I don't even have that. I have people who support me here once in a while. I mean, I make a big sale, maybe, I'm guessing once every 10 years.
And I'm curious, how do those come about? Like, where did they come from?
The last one I made came about through friends, through Mario, through Sabrina's son, and probably Sabrina, people who know me. It was sold to Cranbrook. I was in a big show there, and they bought it right out of the show. They bought it themselves, so that was great.
And what was that experience like?
Oh, it was wonderful. I mean, being in the show was wonderful. Being in a show of figurative African-American comrades, that was a great experience. And the buying of the work too, that was great.
Did that catch you off guard, or not catch you off guard, but did it surprise you, or were you in a way kind of expecting it?
I wasn't expecting it. I never expect it, but it doesn't really surprise me anymore that anything can happen.
That is one of my favorite statements, is that when you undermine the possibilities and the power of God, like it's just, you're disservicing yourself.
Yeah.
Because anything is possible.
Yeah.
Anything. Your biggest ideas, thoughts, they're all sourced, So it's such a cool experience.
When I was surprised maybe 40 years ago when, has it been that long? Yes, it's probably been that long. When I got into Yale, that was a surprise.
The School of Art.
Yeah. And when I got into the...
Why was that a surprise for you?
Well, because it was talked about as such a prestigious school, and I didn't see myself as that kind of person who goes to prestigious schools. I mean, I do my thing. I love drawing. I love painting. And the other things that seem to come along with it sometimes. I don't really see myself as, being in that world. And even today, I don't really see myself as being like that much of a part of the art world.
Really?
But I am.
Why do you feel that?
I don't, I'm not really an out there social person. I'm not putting it down. I'm just not like that.
But
I don't really have ready-made statements about my work. I know what I like to do. I know what I'm interested in life, and I want to bring that into my artwork.
But that is an artist. I think that there's a mixed idea in today's world of what any professional should be. And I think that staying true and rooted to what it is that you do and why you do it is more than enough. You know, I don't think that you have to be a business person. I don't think, but I will say that because for me, it took me a long time to get comfortable with business. Even though my background was marketing, I was taught how to work for another institution or organization. I wasn't taught how to create my own, you know? So I think it's something that time will present itself to you, but you have to be ready to receive it.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I can do it from the vantage point of doing the work, supporting or interacting with other people who do the work, who do the actual artwork. And then together we can move toward something substantial that encompasses everybody and drives everybody forward. I can be a part of that if it's like a movement. I can be a part of it, you know.
But your talent and you know what's interesting, Richard, is that as a creator myself in a different medium, different form, I almost sometimes get so confused by when I see somebody such as yourself or another creator artist that isn't appreciated the way that I wish the world appreciated. It makes me wonder. It makes me wonder, what are we doing wrong as, you know, not as society, but as a community? Because if we're not lifting up our artists, our creators within our own community, why is that?
I think it's just a misunderstanding that the world is still what it is. The world is still the world you grew up in with all of its racism and greed and negativity and all of that. There are, like James Baldwin said, a very few people in the world who hold this world together. But not everybody is as lofty as that. Not everybody is a dreamer. I mean, a lot of people are business people, and that's great. They can create the structure upon which you can build something else. You can build something further, but it's still, you know, like a lot of this, you know, these moments for African-American artists might be tied to something else. It might be tied to something political, like let's show that we're diverse and we'll embrace them now, and then, you know,
also reflecting a little bit.
Yeah, the winds change, and then everything seems to, you know, cool off really fast.
Yeah,
you know.
I think also too it reflects the emotion felt during that time.
Yeah,
you know, I think that sometimes that emotion depicted can be a lot more intense and derived by hurt and pain. Sometimes it's derived and pulled from clarity. You know, I think that if somebody sees something clearly and you know the world doesn't see it that way yet, you do your best as an artist to convey and depict that in your work, you know? And I agree. I think now we're in a time where there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of misinformation, and there's a lot of separation that I think only time will bring us back together. But I think it's so important for the people that are the doers, the one that kind of see past the, you got to do this or you should be doing that. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know?
And so people like that, the creators, will just keep on creating. We'll know what we know, understand what we understand, and try and get other people to understand too. Now, where the world wants to take that, we don't know. They may take it towards doing something really concrete to make people's lives better, or they might just, you know, they might be, this might be an opportunity, you know, to make money and then, make a name for yourself. But that's cool. You can pull me along too. I'll go with that too.
So for anybody that doesn't know Richard Lewis, How do you describe your story?
It is. I'm a painter. I'm an artist. I've been doing it since I was a little kid. I can remember doing cartoon drawings when I was 4 years old. I mean, drawings based on comic books and cartoon shows. And my godmother, her name was Belle Banks. Her son is actually Mike Banks, who is a second wave of Detroit techno artists. And she's my godmother. And when I was 10, she bought me my first set of paints and brushes.
Wow.
And canvas blocks, and told me to.
Was it through request or she just surprised you?
No, she just decided to do it. She saw that I was doing a lot of drawing. She first told me to, look at everybody's faces and then go into the next room and draw. And I did.
That's one of the big things that I notice and take right away from your work is the detail of the human faces within your work.
Yeah.
And because I remember reading something that was written about you, and they had referenced your godmother and how she inspired, you're going into the study of the human faces and the detail and stuff.
Yeah.
Was that something that was just always so natural for you, or you just gravitated?
It was natural for me because even way back then, before I was 10 years old, because my family was, they had a lot of good friends, were really down to earth. They had little parties, little get-togethers, and
Where was this base, and what part of?
This was in Detroit. I lived off of first place we lived when I was born was Virginia Park between 12th and Woodrow Wilson. 12th is now Rosa Parks Boulevard. And then we moved to Highland Park, which is, and that was McLean, which is like Glendale, but Glendale east of Woodward is McLean. And it was great. It was, people in my family were, whether they knew it or not, they were natural entertainers. They were like literary characters, and they had the faces to go with it.
Wow.
So I looked at their faces, went in the next room and drew, and they were kind of caricatures, And when I did these drawings, I made myself laugh, and that's when I knew I was good at this. I hadn't really thought of, am I good at this?
Yeah.
But I made myself laugh, and I said, okay, I'm good at this.
And when I first met you in 2021 at Gallery Camille, I could just tell right away that you had such a strong emotional intelligence about you, like intellectual intelligence, And I feel like now I understand because you studied the emotions of human faces since you were a child. So I feel like when you have that intuition of being able to see someone's face and just tell right away something's up, that's not a common thing. So it's a great skill set to have. You know, it's a form of communication. Yeah. So you started early. So you started drawing around 4, and then
when I was 10, I started painting.
You started painting. And then I know that you're a alumni of Cass Technical High School. Yes. Did you have any artistic experience there? Were there any classes offered?
Oh, yeah.
When you were?
I was, by the time I got to Cass Tech, I was completely
an artist.
I was dead set to be an artist. So I was ready for it.
So in 9th grade, you knew?
Yeah, coming in.
Wow.
I mean, I had developed it. I guess I spent all those years before. I went to Catholic school, St. Cecilia, which isn't there now, studying regular things, math, English, it was a pretty good school.
Did anything during that 4 years of high school, or was it 4 years? 9, 10, 11, 12. Deter you from
5 years because was it
super senior?
They had me stay an extra year to prepare my portfolio, so that I can.
So the support was there.
To more schools, yeah. I mean, this was like a classmate of mine said that Cass Tech High School was like a small college art program. Well, so they were serious. They didn't have just art as a class. They had drawing,
wow,
painting.
I didn't know that, because
advanced
you
painting.
hear technical, you think it's like engineer or,
yeah,
you know.
But it was also, the technical side of art
The
too.
arts,
It was printmaking. It was jewelry making.
Wow.
So we
Have
did.
you been back
did
to
a
visit?
lot of things. No, it's not there anymore. They tore the original building down, and I guess the art department is still there. I haven't been back there to visit, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just everything I knew was gone. But
that's the first place they pull funds from, is the arts.
Yeah, well, in this case, they tore down the whole school.
Yeah.
I mean, that was such a big, beautiful building that we ran around in, all 8 floors of it.
What was your best memory from that time?
I guess, the friendships I made was great. Hanging out in the hallways with my friends and then going into class to do my serious work, which is a template I'm still following now. And that was the best part, to have it start to form even during high school, my life, to really come together then. And since, you're supposed to have a job, you're supposed to make money, I didn't really appreciate how great all of that was. It was really like, it was like an all-black school. So it was like going to, I went and visited a friend of mine named Daryl Halbert, who's an artist. I visited him at the school he went to, which was Howard University. And it struck me when I visited him there how close it was to Cass Tech. Really? It was like the experience was like, wow, everybody's Black, everybody's part of this same community. And even though we've chosen different paths, we're all going toward the same thing, And it was so full of promise and so full of excitement for the future of what comes next. And so we were really excited about the learning of it.
So then after high school, you continued your journey through CCS.
To CCS.
And you got your Bachelor of Fine Arts?
Yeah.
At CCS. What was that experience like for you?
I was thinking I need to get a job, so I went into graphic design, commercial design first.
I'm interested. I first want to ask you this. So you just said you knew you needed to get a job, so you went into graphic design.
I knew that I would have to have some kind of career because everybody talks about.
Yeah. What year was this?
Even my parents even talked about, what are you going to be one of these?
It was a common conversation.
Artists they have on TV. They used to run commercials about Holiday Inns having art shows. You want to be one of them? Or are you going to do something for real?
Entrepreneurship wasn't trendy until it was the only option.
Yeah. And then, even if you're an entrepreneur, then they must have figured art must be on the lowest. That's the lowest rung of all.
Which is mind-blowing, because for anybody that knows, the art industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But it's multi-billion dollars for so many reasons, because the art is beautiful, but then it's also an investment to, I don't want to say launder money, but it's an investment to hold your money and keep it in a certain place, and no one actually sees the artwork.
It's a form of currency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is what you see at the DIA, and then everything
what
is
you don't
storage, And that's I guess that's the place where you make deals.
Yeah.
But then I don't really think about it that much. I think about the flowery glory part of it, of how beautiful all the work is, and all of the artists that strove to make that happen.
Yeah. And I think now in this modern day definition of what an artist is, I think that it's so in parallel with the same format and structure that a lot of different types of artists practice. And what I mean by that are musical acts or dancers. For generations, we live in Motown, so we know how their art has been packaged and marketed to the masses and reproduced and rebranded and, so I think that a lot of creatives are revisiting history to see how things have been done in the past, because as we all know, things repeat. Generation after generation. So it's never a poor decision to kind of reference what has happened before our time and kind of see what we can pull and take from it in order to apply it to our current situation.
And we learn it from each other across all disciplines too.
It almost becomes like an epiphany moment where you're like, whoa, wait a minute. You're telling me I got to tell everyone I know. You
can do a pop-up show, and they can do a pop-up restaurant.
Like I'm sure that many artists, there were a period of time that they thought in order for my art to be showcased in a show, I had to get into a show. There probably weren't as many artists with a mindset, I can just create a show and curate.
I've got the crowd that everybody wants anyway. So I'm just here. We'll start it. We'll do it. And it'll just be friends meeting, but it can be a lot more.
But I want to say this, Richard. I think a lot of artists, a lot of people that come from communities like ours undermine the power of our network and what it can achieve if we just reach out to it, because a lot of, I would assume for you as well, a lot of people in our network are engineers, are doctors, are business owners, are, lawyers, are people that have real estate where they can happily put a piece of work on their wall or in their office. That we forget that we have that reach, but I don't know what it is. I think it's just a matter of getting over that feeling of it's okay. It's okay to ask. It's okay.
We have to just go ahead and do it, no matter what we believe. We have to push ahead and do it. We have a lot of experience of not only can we do things grassroots that the other people can't, but it seems to me sometimes more professional people, more people with more resources, they can pretend to be grassroots, There's that too.
So. I was just thinking the other day, like, it's the thing that I think is so unfair when it comes to, and I don't know, as I'm saying it out loud, I'm kind of reevaluating the way I'm going to describe it, is funds and resources don't mean that you're talented. They just mean that you have more access to talent. Because when you're somebody that has money, you can hold that money up, attract talent, and then leverage that talent for your purpose or your benefit.
And they can do that for years, and you won't even know that they're operating on that level.
Yes.
That you're the adornment to give them legitimacy.
Yep. And it will continue to happen if you allow it to.
So you have to, we keep building things with our friends, and that's the most important thing. We know these people personally. We don't have to vet them. And if there's any disagreement with who our friends are working with, we can just discuss it and still work with them and still love them. There's no fear with your friends.
Expand and tap into your community. So then after CCS, you then went to Yale. The
CCS was even more technically complete than Cass Tech, and Cass Tech was pretty good. There were a lot of things I was doing all the way through CCS that I started at Cass Tech.
Like what?
Drawing the figure, learning to draw a face properly with anatomy and all that.
So were you doing this digitally? Because you said you went into graphic design.
No, I went into graphic design because graphic design was, back then, graphic design and illustration, because I was in commercial art at Cass Tech too. It was fine arts, but so refined that it could be commercial. It could have a commercial use. So that's why I went into it, because I thought, okay, I can do most of what I want and then still make a living.
Yeah.
But once I got to CCS, I was like in graphic communications.
And practicing on
going towards
Adobe or?
No, back then, they didn't have so much involvement with computers. I was talking to somebody about this the other week. I was telling them that when we did type, when you had to do a advertisement with type, you actually cut the type with a X-Acto knife. And you spray the entire back of the type with glue. Then you cut it strip by strip and cut it to the shape you want it to be around the image or under the image. And then you put the image on, and it has to be so clean that when you photograph it, a photostat machine will not pick up any dirt.
That was the graphic design.
It had to be all done by hand. It was a craft.
Wow.
And then I graduated, and it was like somebody discovered computers, and all of that went out the window. But that was called key lining back then. We called it had
key lining.
It had, when you were going to do a mock-up of an advertisement, it had rows of words, short words, long words that meant nothing. Maybe it was in Latin. I don't know, but I think these words meant nothing. And you put them together, and you made it look like a believable paragraph, and then you glued the image down, and you cleaned it up with Bestine. All these horrible things you used to solvents.
So it was like a form of collaging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And it had to be so neat and so clean that you can take a picture of it and it'll be ready to print.
Wow. And you couldn't tell that it was cut out.
You couldn't if you were really good at it. Now, me, I'm not that meticulous, so I shied away from that part of it. And I went into illustration, which is where I wanted to be anyway. So illustration had, back in the before now, before the 90s, back in the 70s and 60s, it was really just fine art painting that is so refined and so realistic looking or so design oriented that it could have a commercial use. So you learn all these nice techniques of drawing a car, painting it in.
I'm curious, what was the commercial usage of illustrations like when you were in CCS? Like, what were they being used in ads? What was it?
Here in Detroit, they used to do things called matte cars, which is a black and white photostat image of an automobile. But even those were drawn. You could photograph it, but to make it a real graphic work of art, you do it by hand. So you learn perspective, you learn all of the tricks of drawing, the ellipses and all of that stuff, and you do it in black and white instead of. You have no middle value between white and black. You just do it wherever there's going to be a shadow, that shadow is going to be in black. And if you need a white line in there to describe the form of the car, you draw a fine white line in there.
Was it black and white because the print was in color yet?
Because it's cheaper, and it wasn't in color for the most part, but it's cheaper to make this graphic thing, and if you develop a good design sense, it can be really interesting to look at. And you put them in a newspaper, a whole days, you remember the newspapers had whole pages of these things. And there's stories about people who were barely out of school or still in school who could, make maybe $100,000 doing tons of these things. But it was a handcrafted art.
Meticulous process.
Yeah. Not so much now. The computer does all the work, and I guess whoever makes the computer gets most of that money now, But that's what it was like back then. But I still loved, I wanted to go more into painting. So I did and I loved the fine arts department at CCS anyway. I was just hanging out over there.
So did you develop your fine art skill set at CCS? Because I
developed technical things at CCS. I was already developing the art from when I was a kid. But the things that stuck to the humanist work that I wanted to do was on the fine art side. A lot of it, but really to get you going, the discipline of it came from illustration first.
What were the teachings like at CCS for somebody that has never gone to a fine art school? Are they talking about this is what is popular right now? This is what's going to get your work sold? This is what, or is it more?
They do some of that. And then a lot of it is, they did some of that, I mean. And a lot of it was nostalgia from when they were young students. And they loved Renaissance painting and Impressionist painting. And how do you incorporate that into a car ad? You know? So when you look at, those car brochures they used to produce back in the 60s, and you look at them, you're looking at really just straight painting. You're looking at artwork, but it's for commercial use. But they put as much as themselves as they can without making it a personal work of art. But their tastes are in it. The things that they love are represented there. The colors, the subtleties, because those brochures were full color and a full range of values too. So you just, you have all these beautiful paintings, lavish paintings of cars that are like twice as big and twice as wide as they are in real life.
Yeah, I remember that was one of the first things that I learned how to draw in high school in my art class was a car.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously too, because we're in the Motor City. But I'm wondering, so after CCS, how long was it before you started your transition to Yale?
I went straight into Yale.
You went straight into Yale from CCS.
I applied while I was still a student. I got accepted to the interview phase of it. And right before, a few months before graduation.
Wow.
And I went there for, I guess, a weekend, talked to a couple of teachers there, a couple of great teachers, actually, Andrew Forge and Natalie Charco, and talked to them. And they liked the work. They liked what I was doing. And they were kind of surprised that I knew, so many artists because I had spent so much time at the DIA too, So it's like from Cast Tech through CCS, it was all, everything seemed to work together, that the commercial part of it was only part of it. It wasn't like they existed over here and we existed over there. All of us were part of the same art community, the same art experience.
Yeah.
But some of us had jobs doing this thing and some of us were teaching and some of us were doing our own work and trying to sell it, but we were all part of a complete
community,
art community. And I think it's that way because, Detroit was so focused on being an automobile type town, like it was always thought of that way. And then when you look at that's what it is on the surface. And then when you look look on the other side of it, it's all
so
artists, people trying to express themselves as humans. We're not trying to express ourselves.
Some of the most creative people I've ever met have come from Detroit.
Yeah. And it's because the atmosphere seems so limited where you're so hyper-focused on this one thing, but nothing,
it's like a thrive energy.
Yeah, nothing drives you to make you decide what you really want when you're doing something that you may not be wanting to do. Like soon as you get a job, you figure out what you want to paint.
Yeah.
Because okay, now I can pay bills and I'm stuck here.
Yep.
And now I want to go do this.
And that's one thing I say. It's like the journey to success is a long one because if you take the shortcut and do something to get you that money that pays the bill, there's a chance you're not going to like what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then you just said stuck. You're going to feel safe. So you're going to stay stuck for a while.
Or worse, if you do like what you're doing, but you're not doing what you feel you were meant to do. Like, I like this job. This is a nice little comfortable job. And I like the people. And I may not be painting the paintings I want to paint, but
that's what I mean. You become complacent. You become like comfortable. A little bit of fear starts to seep in. Like, I just took on a mortgage. I can't lose this job, you know? So it almost starts to become like, if you allow yourself to be in a situation where you don't have all of those pressures and you just are comfortable, like steadily working up to that point where it becomes your main source of income, then it's like you built a foundation that cannot be broken, because you don't have to worry about if somebody's gonna, possibly lay you off, or if somebody's gonna, someone younger is gonna come in that's more advanced, or, like it's your development. And I think that the same applies to any creative or creator. It's you're building your reputation.
Yeah.
And I think reputation is one of the biggest things that is undermined in the world of business.
It's great though to think that way when you're young, and you do that and you try and follow it the best way you can.
Mm-hmm.
But if the world presents itself as, what you really want to do, all that you want to do ain't happening, then you have to go along with it. I think.
What do you mean by that?
I don't think you do, but I don't know. I mean, I'm saying that I'm thinking about what my parents did, what my grandparents did, great-grandparents. They all had dreams too, but they also had to take care of us.
But that's what I'm saying. I think that
we may have been like maybe the first or second generation that had doors opening for us, and maybe they weren't completely open.
Yeah.
But maybe the next generation, because it's great that Mario's doing so much more than what me and Sabrina were doing before him. And then, what people were doing before us, that he's really, like, doors are really open for him. And he seems determined to open doors for the people coming up behind him,
And that's the part where it's like, you have to build the tracks to the top of the mountain where there's no tracks yet. But you also have to understand that there's a level of responsibility on your end to also pull up, like Mario's doing, your community up to the top of the mountain as well. Because for some people, when they think I didn't have that same opportunity, there's a little bit of resentment. But then for somebody that I would imagine now, a 20-something-year-old that's just getting started in the art world, there's this level of some confusion, some entitlement, some like not knowing everything, that there becomes this space for young people to really not have to worry as much about all of the noises that we listened to growing up.
Like, what's nice is that, well, maybe I shouldn't put it that way, but I think Mario doesn't have to face exactly the same little monsters that me and Sabrina had to face, or the same little racist, and me and Sabrina didn't have to face the same little monsters that the people that came before us had to face.
But they're still out there.
I know, they're still out there.
They're just, for some of them, they have a different mask on now.
Yeah.
So I think that it's never to undermine someone's work, because and I say this all the time too, because it's like, even if it's a brand that I don't endorse or respect, or I just wouldn't, talk about, there's a level of respect, because it takes a lot of work to get to that point where you're recognized by such a large group of people. But we take back the power in being able to say, like, if we build up our brand, we get to say who we want to spotlight, who we want to talk about, I wouldn't put an energy drink in front of a camera, because for me, I want to showcase things that are good for the people in my community. I want to showcase things that are beneficial, not things that are harmful, but look cool. The packaging's cool. So it really does. But I will say this though, some people might say, like, well, if they're going to send you a check for 20 grand, why wouldn't you put, a can? It's not always about the money.
Yeah.
It's about why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And
that money goes away fast.
Oh, so fast.
And then the damage stays.
So fast. So then after your time at CCS, you
went straight into Yale. And that was really a good experience.
Describe it a little bit.
It was, they took painting so seriously. They took it as seriously as the other two schools before.
What was the cultural atmosphere like there?
It was, it was mostly white. It was 3 black people. It may have been, there was one Asian woman. of everyone all together. It seemed to be half men, half women. But it was only three of us, three black people. Any other diversity other than that while I was there, you know. There was one black teacher, Robert Reed, that was his name, and he was great. And actually all the teachers were great. So it wasn't, you know, color-wise, it wasn't diverse. It was like white people, a lot of Jewish people, one Asian and three black students and one black teacher. You know?
What's the biggest thing when you reflect back on that time that you take from that experience, that moment?
It was how seriously they took painting. You know, we didn't do, you know, you go to grad school, I guess you're expecting to do some kind of thesis, but they didn't do theses because from what I heard that it was the Yale School of Arts theses were, you know, afforded too much attention, and it was becoming almost a little circus where people were trying to pay the students money for their theses, you know, and publish them in magazines, you know, and it was, they cared only about the painting. So you did a thesis show at Yale, you know, and that's what we did. We did group shows, 5 artists apiece, in their big gallery space, and we put up the work that represented who we are, what we're about.
Where are those 5 pieces now?
Oh, man.
Sold?
No. I don't know. Sold and lost through different ways. I mean, just a few years ago, this was like after I talked to you back at Gallery Camille, we got evicted. So, you know, some of the work got lost. And that was like, even then, we're talking about after 30-something years. So, some of that work got lost. I remember one self-portrait went to a show in Lansing, the Lansing Art Gallery. I never saw that again. And that was way back in the 90s. So, I don't know, hopefully somebody stole it and kept it in their house. I'm hoping.
It would be cool for it to pop up one day and you're just like, wow, there it is. So after your time at Yale, then you spent some time in Harlem.
Came back here first.
Oh, you came back to Detroit first.
Came back to Detroit and wanting to paint and support a studio. I got first I got a grant, you know, from Canada called the Elizabeth Greenshields grant, and that helped me get up my first studio. I also drove a cab.
But before, I want to ask you about the grant. So did you know as an artist?
Someone told me about it. People tell each other about these things. Why don't you try this grant? It's for figurative artists.
Got it.
You know, so it's a good little grant.
Where was your studio at?
The first one was in Hamtramck. Former teacher of mine, Joseph Bernard, had a building, I think it used to be a firehouse, and his studio was downstairs, so he was renting the space upstairs, and I had that for a little while. And then I left that one and went to a church, a Catholic church school. You know, they were renting space out within that school. To artists, and I had that for a couple of years, and then I went to Harlem.
So how long were you back in Detroit before you moved to Harlem?
It was I graduated in 93, and then I left for the Studio Museum in late 95.
So 93 Harlem, you left, or you graduated in 93 from Yale, and came back to Detroit.
Drove a cab, and I also assisted Sabrina in a African-American art history class because it was someone, I believe it was, I can't remember her name now, but she was running the class, this woman, and at CCS and at I think it was at CCS she was running the class and she couldn't do it, and she asked Sabrina to take it over so that the class would still be there.
So before you went to Harlem, you assisted with Sabrina in the class.
And then Sabrina, I think herself, somehow sold this class to Oakland University. So we were teaching at both places. I don't know how she did it, but you know, it's Sabrina. She can do things, you know. So we were teaching at both places, And so I was doing that, driving a cab and painting.
So then how did the opportunity in Harlem present itself?
The applications for the Artist in Residence program are always there. And there was, at least one person, Dawood Bey, who's a great photographer. He was there, I think, at the almost at the beginning of the Artist in Residence program at Studio Museum. I knew he had been there, and I had heard of other artists who had gone there.
How would you describe what an artist in residence is to somebody?
You have a studio and you live in that community. It's like I'm an artist in residence here in Detroit too, but you're closely tied to the museum that's sponsoring you or the place that's sponsoring you. And you can teach students, you can get involved like as far as what they want to do artistically. You can give them advice about things. They can come see your work and learn about what you do. You talk to them, and you become.
Are you involved in participating in exhibitions as well, or that's not the format?
We had one exhibition at Studio Museum. You had one exhibition for the three artists that were there. It was me, Shakaya Booker, and Michael Richards, and then we came and we became good friends with each other too. That's another benefit of it. And, I was like obsessed with New York anyway. I wanted to be there. I visited a couple times when I was at Yale, and I just really knew I wanted to be there.
What about it drew you?
It's huge, ornate, handmade. Like in Detroit, you have a lot of people. I'm very lucky to have a lot of African-American people with the same idea as me. But in New York, there's like millions of people there. And a lot of those people have the same idea as you. I don't think they do it as well as Detroit.
Do what as well?
Form a arts community as well as Detroit, because Detroit is the right size to have one.
That's just an interesting point. When I spoke with Sabrina, she had mentioned that there's a lot more access here to artists than there is in New York.
And a lot more access to galleries and museums here, too.
Really?
Because you can't just walk into the Metropolitan and know somebody there who could somehow get you a show there.
There's a lot of gates.
Yeah. Like in The Godfather, they said a lot of buffers, between you and them. And you can't just walk into a gallery like you can here with George Nnamdi and that's just George Nnamdi, and I just know him. And he says, and then he might say to you, which I think almost it could happen in New York, but I couldn't imagine. He'll say to you, "What are you doing now? Would you like to be in this show?" And someone calls you.
It's so funny because I met him when I first moved into this studio because his gallery is right next to this building. And I walked in, I was having a conversation with him, and the first thing he says to me, he goes, "Son, I need to put you on my payroll." Thank you. But yeah, you're right. I think that here in Detroit, there's a level of, I don't know if it's just in New York, they just see themselves differently. And for us, we see ourselves as the same.
It's just so many people like there, and then you have to, who's serious and who's not.
Yeah.
And if I help this person will be angry, and there's all that stuff.
So many politics involved.
Yeah, so much tension there for all of its beauty, but I still love that city.
So the very first time I met you was in 2021 at Gallery Camille. It was a show that at the time the curator Dalia Reyes had worked with you on, titled Work in Progress. And I remember when I saw that show, it was a solo exhibition, and it was sharing stories of your personal, but then also like the history of heritage, the historical narratives of the time. So how do you approach a show? I know that when you approach a solo exhibition is a completely different mindset when you're going to a solo exhibition. So this question is more specifically about the Work in Progress show. How did you approach that show at Gallery Camille, knowing that like all the pieces on the wall were going to represent only you?
I mean, I approach each show like that anyway. Even if it's a group show, I know what I'm going to do. I know what I'm going to contribute, what I'm going to bring forward. But that show, I mean, I called it, what was it, Works in Progress, because it's like a play on my own reputation for not really finishing much, but doing a lot. I accomplish a lot, but the idea of finish is open for me. You know, because I really want to, I want to express every nuance. Really, I want to delve into it as much as I can. Mm-hmm. But then life gets in the way. Mm-hmm. And that's a reality too. And I'm okay with that becoming part of the work too. Why it doesn't have the finish of it. Because sometimes for me, finishing is finishing off a work. And I don't want to finish things off. I think it's a living thing. I think it should be open.
That was one of the things I remember you saying, is that nothing is truly ever done.
Yeah. You know, you can always expand on that, what they call in jazz, they call it improvisation. Mm-hmm. You know, like how many different my favorite things, how many versions of that did Coltrane have? You know, and it's like, oh wow, there's this, I can go this way with it, go that way with it, you know. So I think about things like that, you know. So it's always kind of, all my work is kind of in progress. And if I stopped working on anything right now and then come back 10 years later, I'm like, oh boy, it's a ton of work to do, you know. So yeah, that's kind of where it's coming from.
So I'm curious about your view and position on, because recently, earlier this year in 2024, you participated in a show at Cranbrook, the museum at Cranbrook, and it was titled "The Skilled Labor Black Realism in Detroit." I'm curious because that isn't a historically known white institution, and this is a topic of conversation that has been very brought up in a lot of, you know, it was recently brought up in a panel at the Charles H. Wright Black History Museum. The topic that came up was the feeling from Black artists on white institutions showcasing more Black artists. And if they feel a sense of not full understanding of why now, or what is the motive for, you know, behind it. What are your thoughts on these institutions now showcasing more diverse artists?
My thought is you go with it, because there's one person at Cranbrook, there's probably more, but there's one curator at Cranbrook, Laura Mott, and this was her idea. And she is totally behind it. But then, you know, the board of directors may not be behind it, but she got them to go along with it. And at some point, I don't really care how she did it. She did it. And me and all of my friends and all of my colleagues were in a show at Cranbrook Museum. It could happen at the DIA too. There are sympathetic people there too. And that's like the history of this country. You have some sympathetic people who will help you further yourself, because we can't do this without allies.
Or people that are just now realizing what is happening, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and the sad part is that they have to go through this awakening about what's happening with every generation. I mean, every generation is like a clock goes off and everybody forgets, 100%. And then we have to come back and start again, you know?
And that's what I say is, like, when you're raised not knowing, how can you get mad at someone when they don't know?
Yeah.
You know?
You can't.
You can't. All you can do is just...
I mean, I can't get mad at young people, because that was my responsibility to tell them. You know, to say, hey, look, this is what used to happen then. And the fact that you're doing it now, you know, because I think it's great, because I'm sure if you look at the history of Cranbrook, you know, it wasn't all that inclusive way back when MacArthur Benyon was there or before that, but it seems to be now.
And it goes back to what we talked about earlier. It's that the newer generations, that when they hear this, like, of course, yeah, duh, they should showcase all of it. That's not how it was.
Yeah.
That's not how, like,
and it's not really where it is now. Like they don't, not everybody's on board.
Mm-hmm.
So you got people like her, like Laura Mott, and people at DIA who will, reach out and push to have it happen.
That's the part that I think that a lot of people don't see behind the curtains, that there's so much more dictation happening on boards that suppress opportunity for people of color because of the fact that those conversations are not public and not exposed. So it's almost like they're behind closed doors. And then the person responsible for making the decision is the one that's left with the impression of what the outcome is, So I think I agree with you 100% that when the opportunity presents, like the scars are still there. We're still going to feel some type of way about what's happening, but it's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Never pass an opportunity. Yeah. And I mean, of course, unless it's
say, oh, well, that could be exploitation. But I mean, that is the history of us in this world.
Yeah, because what happens is you have the opportunity to be exposed to a larger group of people that may not have seen you had you not taken that opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, when I was thinking about like places that are popping up in Detroit now, and it might be about real estate. The people who are behind it are about real estate. But when you look back at the Harmon Foundation, he was a real estate mogul too. But he put a lot of people on back then. This is back in the 20s and 30s. So I'm like, this is how it's been.
History repeating itself.
And we'll keep going until we can change it. I mean, and we're doing that too. We're establishing our own places. But you need allies to do everything you want to do. So don't say no to it. When someone presents themselves to you as a potential ally, you go with it.
Yes. If you could get into a time machine and go forward 100 years, where would you hope to see your work displayed?
I hope some of it would survive. I hadn't thought of, I got one piece I got pieces in museums. I hope it would be, that they would drag it out, dust it off, and put it up sometimes in the places where they are now. I got one at the DIA. I got, the one at Cranbrook, and if the DIA and Cranbrook are still there in 100 years, take my work out, dust it off, hang it up for, a month or so. I got some in two places in California, and I got one in Minnesota. So they're like all over the place,
Is there a piece that is significant to you to a point where if the opportunity ever presented itself for you to own it, you wouldn't hesitate to purchase it?
You mean a piece, from the museum or something? Anywhere in the world? Yeah, probably a lot of things, but, I don't want to, I just want to see it. I don't want to own it.
Which piece is that?
I mean, it's a lot of them. I mean, it's a lot of great artworks from long ago in history, and there's a lot of artworks now.
Is there an artist that is your top 2, top 3?
No, I wouldn't say that, because they're different. I mean, like my friends and people who I've grown up admiring.
So you don't put them in a ranking order. You just
I don't rank people. In my room right now, on my wall above my bed, I have a Thea Chioda, who I went to school with, who I think is the greatest painter, and I have a Mario Moore self-portrait right next to his, and those are the two greatest painters, right?
How do you pronounce the first artist's name?
Thea Chioda.
Thea Chioda.
He's Iraqi. He grew up here in Detroit, or he moved here when he was very young, maybe 12, maybe younger than that. But his family escaped Iraq when he was very young, came to Detroit, Grew up around the 7 Mile area where a lot of Arab families live. And
can his work be seen anywhere currently?
Not at the DIA, though they may have his work, but the Arab American Museum in Dearborn should have at least one piece of his.
And then the second artist, Mario Moore.
Mario Moore, yeah. He calls me his mentor. I'll gladly accept it, but he was a force of nature when he was,
incredible work. I saw some of his pieces at the DIA recently, and it feels good as a Detroiter.
Yeah.
To see another Detroiter.
That this great artist painting on the level of all the other great artists in there is up on the wall and he's painting his friends.
What is something that he said to you that has always stuck with you as his career developed?
He's probably said a lot of things, but just what he does, It's like the way he understood at such a young age what he was doing. Just technically, he understood. And then as he got older, it wasn't just understanding technically. Like he used to draw Edgar Degas drawings, and he really understood at the age of 6, like the gesture and the weight and the posture of the body. But later on, he also understood political implications of what he was doing and where we're all going, which explains why he does so many great things. I mean, people are going to look back, and I mean, we already realize it now. What he did at Cranbrook, what he and Laura Mott put together, that was impossible. Yeah. No one ever even thought of that I knew of. I certainly didn't. But it happened. He and her made it happen. And he brought me in with it. And I'm eternally grateful for that too. So, because he doesn't like walk around spewing like wisdom, He is wise, but he doesn't really lecture a lot. He does talk about his work, and you have to listen to him to really get it, get what he's saying. But yeah, I mean, I just, I love the way he grew into himself, and then now he's like a real true leader in this community,
And that's got to feel really good for you.
Yeah.
Being that he sees you as a mentor, and you're able to watch him blossom in his career.
And it's like, it's like a real gift that somebody is telling you that not only you left your work, which is valuable, but you've contributed to this community by contributing to him, And I did it the way people did it for me.
Yeah.
People contributed to me. I didn't do this by myself. It started with my godmother. But there were a lot of people at CCS.
We're all just an extension of everybody that has influenced us.
Yeah. And that's what the community means.
Who are some other artists that you have been noticing, specifically Detroit artists, that you're excited to see their career blossom?
I'm really, I do really like Tyline Sawyer. I love Sabrina's work. It was always, I always gravitated toward what she did, because as I grew, I was thinking more of that there are African roots to what we do. Whether we realize it or not. I mean, my grandmother put the glass of water with the little pebbles in it, with the note on top of it, under her bed, and that goes straight back to Africa. And even the ways we sat together and ate and talked about things, and I'm looking for that anthropology in the portraits that I do. And Sabrina just like has it like within her. It's just like so natural. It just flows from her to everybody around her. So it's always great to see her work. Sophel Gardner and Harold Allen are two abstract painters that, because I always am drawn to looking at their work because I want to understand more of what painting is. And for me, it's like a real connection between, I want to see a connection. I mean, not just imagine it, but see a connection between painting and jazz. Because jazz is, it's, to me, it's beautiful melody, the structure, and then there's the improvisation part of it. And the way they put their improvisations together, it can be like, the way you improvise, which colors to put together and how you put them together.
I find the process to always be one of the most fascinating things to watch.
Yeah.
I think that when you're able to see in real time something be created, whether it's a pastry or a piece of art, which pastry can be a piece of art, but I think it's just fascinating to watch because every single creator's process is so unique to them that it's almost like you're getting a glimpse into not just the type of artist that they are, but the way they think.
And there is those two. There's also, there are people that I like for different reasons, like Elizabeth Youngblood. She does works on paper that are really interesting to me because I want works on paper, even though I want to do works like that, even though I am a figurative artist. I want that kind of sensitivity for the medium and how she applies it. There's Carol Harris, who does beautiful works in textiles. And it's like she's a wonderful abstract artist who works in textiles. And I love textiles.
If you could spend one day in any artist studio, who would you pick?
Today it could be her. Tomorrow it could be Sophel. Next day it could be Sabrina. But all of them really.
And why? Why would you want to spend that day? Because for someone like Sabrina, you know her so well.
I'm not always there, like right there when she's doing the work all the time. I'm doing my work. I'm over here in Boston Edison, and she's over there at her studio.
And I guess that's why I asked the question, because it's
I only see her really make work when she films it herself.
You get a deeper glimpse into the process behind the person.
Yeah.
or just I have an idea of the process. I mean, I've seen it because I have been in studios with her before, but just watch the dexterity, the dancing on paper that she does, or that
the experience.
Dancing, the performance on canvas that Sophel does, and Harold Allen and Carol Harris.
She actually made a really great point when I had a chance to speak with her. Because I had asked about community. How do artists build community? And one of the points she had made was about inviting people to your studio. And I thought about that. I'm like, well, doesn't every artist do that already? But surprisingly, I found out that most artists, that's not a common thing. It's not that they do it all the time.
Because, I'm not against it. I want it, actually. I'm in a place where there are a lot of people coming through, but most of the days there's nobody really coming through. But I would love to invite. When I see people, I invite them. I'll invite them.
Got it.
More. I'll just be more forward about it.
But you don't have no
I don't have
designated
strict,
day of the month where
I don't have any strict.
Okay.
I'm working on this. I can't have visits.
So anybody could just reach out on Instagram and say, "Hey, can I stop by?"
Talk my ear off, and I'll talk yours off, and still paint.
Which I think that's just such a cool concept. It's such a cool just day to spend your day, you know, with an artist and just watching them do their thing.
Yeah. I mean, the place that I'm at now is it's at Submerge. It's the my god brother Michael Banks' place. He owns it, and so it's really all musicians in there, techno musicians. And so they're in there and out of there, but once in a while they'll have a live band in there rehearsing to go do something, you know. So I did this painting of Jack Johnson versus Caravaggio's Gravedigger, and the day that I started that painting, this band who was led by, I don't remember her name, it was led by a woman that plays the harp, and she had just a very diverse band playing with her. You know, it's like playing the harp with a jazz band, you know. And they pumped so much energy into me, and it came out on the canvas. It was such a great night to paint while they're playing live music right behind you, you know, 5 feet behind you.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's such an undermined thing. We get so inspired by just being around other human energy that are producing.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, Savell Gardner paints. He does things where he paints on stage while his wife is playing. She's a jazz artist.
Wow.
She's a
what's his name?
She's a bassist. Savell Gardner.
Savell Gardner.
And her name is Marion Hayden.
Marion.
And she has a band, and when they're playing, you know, on stage, he's on stage painting with them. He's like consuming that energy and putting that out on the
I've
canvas,
noticed that
you know.
that's been a common form of now modern day entertainment, live painting.
Yeah.
You know, like whether it's at I've seen it at nightclubs, I've seen it at stadiums.
The first time, I mean, he did it many years ago, and then I saw Sabrina started doing it in the Black Women Rock shows, you know. And I've never been to a show where she was doing it, but she films it. She films everything, thank goodness. And you can really see what's happening while all this music and spoken word, all this live poetry is going on right here, and she's right there reacting to it in paint, you know.
And that essentially is the modern day media that most people like to engage with, is like, which is the reason why a lot of people like to watch podcasts, because it's like real life happening in real time. There's no script, there's no you know, storyline. It's just, this is what's happening, and people are able to almost feel like a fly on the wall, like they're watching, engaging.
Yeah, it's like, you know, like when we were kids and we were being trained traditionally, it was like, yeah, you can listen to music, but you don't have a live band right there. And all of these little barriers are being knocked away, and everything can mix with each other. Everything can happen together. You know, like the house we used to live in, my sister's a chef, and she'd be catering things, cooking things for catering, and I'm in the next room painting, and it was just, you know, like an environment going around.
Yeah, because you can smell all the different.
Yeah. Wow. And then, you know, people come in, come out, come in, make a comment, go back out, come in, ask questions, go back out. I go in the kitchen, taste something, come back in. You know,
it's just like a hub of creation.
Yeah, it's just like something happening.
That's so cool.
And we didn't define it as that, but it was happening. You know, so that's was great. You know, if we can keep making these experiences for ourselves, you know, we can figure out how to bring other people into it so they can benefit from it, and then they can, you know, expand and show us some things too.
Yep. You know? And then, so in 2024, the Michigan Grand Central train station reopened. And I remember walking down they have this little pathway that leads from the parking structure past New Lab towards the train station. And they have this vinyl design of Detroit artists. And I was so excited to see one of your pieces showcased on that vinyl. How did that opportunity partnership come about with the train station?
Someone in New York called.
Someone in New York called.
Someone who was handling that part of
Interesting. I did not know that. Wow.
Knew about me, called, they didn't call me, they called Sherry Washington. And she contacted me, and then they, contacted Melanie Chard, who I was working with too. And we, got it together, signed a little contract, and they paid me a flat fee.
For usage of
that image.
Yep.
And I
on
went
T-shirts,
along with it. They put it on everything. And I'm like, let's see where this goes, because I'm not going to say, oh, you owe me and all of that. I'm just saying, okay, give me a little money. Let me see where this all goes.
Were you happy with that experience?
Yeah, it's
learning experience.
Yeah. And then my image is out there for everybody, when you asked where would I want to see my work displayed, in other people's homes would be nice,
Collectors.
So, well, not collectors, but everybody. So it can be a part of everybody's life, Like if somebody really likes it, say, okay, put it in your house, put it in the frame. If I do something small
If you own a piece, if you buy a piece, are you essentially a collector, or do you have to own multiple pieces to be considered?
I don't really know how that works out. I mean, I think it's if you buy a piece, I'm thinking even if it's one, you're a collector. I mean, if you buy more than one, then you're a collector. But if you buy one, you're a patron, I guess. But you own a work of art, so you're collecting a work of art, and you're taking care of that work of art. It's a lot of responsibility. I would hope you're somebody who has the wherewithal to do it.
So when you say you hope to see your work inside of other people's home, not just collectors,
and not just galleries or museums.
In what way? Like, do you have a picture of what that would look like?
Hanging on the wall. I can do smaller pieces. I do smaller pieces, and they can hang it on the wall, look at it. So I like that.
What do you hope people to feel when they look at your work?
That they like it as much as they like other crafts or things that they may collect. They like how well it's put together, and if it has meaning for them, they'll like that too.
Are you an artist that allows your piece to mean whatever it means to whoever is receiving it?
Yeah. They don't have to. I don't have to preach it to them. They can find in it what they want, what they see in it. And maybe I'll learn some things too.
What's one piece of advice that you would share with anyone that is thinking about exploring, pursuing a career in the arts?
Go into it, give your all to it, meaning study it. If you want to call it obsess over it, because you may not have the time to do it. So once your mind is on it, jump into it with both feet, go all the way as possible. And because life seems to tug you away from it, and you'll start the process of being pulled away and then clinging your way back to it. But find a good initial period where you completely obsess over it, and then learn everything you can and practice. Carry a sketchbook, draw on the bus rides, draw in the park, go to the Scripps. It was at the Scripps place, the planetarium on Belle Isle. Go there, sit, take you a little folding chair, sit down and draw. whenever you can find those quiet moments where you don't have a deadline or something to do, which is rare, but if you find it, go do that, go practice. Always be drawing, because that's the pilot light, that keeps everything else going. And then, plan pieces, plan things that that's gonna take some time to really build, but say what you want to say. Plan them, have them in place, and then, create it. And then whatever you want to do with your life, if success comes, you can also imagine that too. If success comes, have a plan in place what to do with it, so that once money comes and once something comes, you say, okay, I wanted to do this, and then boom, it's done, and now you don't have to worry about it, and then you go on to the next thing. So just as obsess over it, but then be strategic about it. Is this making sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
That was great advice. Thank you so much, Richard, for being here. I appreciate you. I am so excited to continue to watch your legacy develop over time, and look forward to seeing all the shows that you're going to be a part of, all the pieces that you create. I've been a fan and will continue to be one.
Thank you.